Okay, well, why don't we jump right into it? Thank you, Peter and Kate, for joining us on the What Are We Drinking podcast today. Why don't we get started and just have each of you tell us a little bit about yourselves and your role at the Honnold Foundation?
Sure. I can go first. So it's nice to talk to everyone and meet y'all. My name is Kate Trujillo, and I am the Deputy Director at the Honnold Foundation. I'm based in the beautiful Northwest in Portland, Oregon. And really, my role at HF has been and is to this point the development and overseeing of all of our programs. As well as a lot of the internal operations of the organization. But on the program side, that looks like all of our grant programs and all of our partner facing projects that we do around the world. So I always tell people that I have the really fun job. Someone else gets to raise the money and then I get to give it away.
There
Nice.
you go. And speaking of raising the money, my name's Peter Wally. I'm the development and communications manager here at HF. I am based in Salt Lake City, although soon to be a van traveling somewhere towards the Pacific Northwest. We'll see. And yeah, my role centers around sharing stories about the incredible work that our partners do, who Kate works so closely with, and then just kind of trying to develop some strategic partnerships and get everyday folks excited to contribute to the work that we do.
Nice. Thanks for the intro. Why don't we um kind of just talk about we've recently come out with a collaboration water bottle with you guys with the Honnold Foundation. I think Rob, do you have those near you to show off?
Yeah, we got both of the sizes here. This is our 48-ounce one,
I have
and
one
then
right here.
and that's the 32. Yeah, and we got some really cool artwork by Alexandra Rubio. She's one of our artists, and she's been working with us for a long time. She made this cool graphic with El Cap and Half Dome on it, both climbing routes that Alex Honnold himself has accomplished. Um, so yeah, that's pretty cool artwork. You can check those water bottles out. We're running a sale on them um, on March 9th to the 13th, and we'll be donating 100% of our profits back to the Honnold Foundation. So you're supporting a good cause and you're getting a really cool water bottle.
Nice. And on the topic of Alex Honnold and his foundation, why don't we just touch on who is he and why did he start this nonprofit? Why solar energy? Just kind of go from there.
Sure, I can take it. Peter put himself on mute, so I'm guessing that means me. Uh, so as many of you may know or may not know, Alex Honnold is a infamous rock climber at this point and has done some really amazing feats. And he started his foundation 11 years ago now. So we're coming into our 11th year, I believe. And he started his foundation after traveling, around the world for all his rock climbing expeditions and doing so much in the backcountry and really going to communities that are really truly off grid. And one of the things that stood out to him is the inequities that exist around the world as you travel, and also the lack of energy, lack of access to energy that exists around the world. And solar became a really big focus of his because for him, it feels like a really win-win solution, which it is. It's something that is really easily accessible. You can put it anywhere. You can put it on a house. You can put it for a water filter. You can help use it for a food processor. You can plug in a light to it. And so it's really easy to put it in different places around the world, which makes it very accessible. And he wanted to, start a foundation where he was having the impact and having the ability to work with communities around the world. So Peter, I'm sure I missed a few things, so go for it.
Yeah, I mean, I think I would just add that, at the time when Alex started the foundation, he was still kind of living in his van full time back in 2012. And I mean, he really just kind of came to the conclusion that, you know, he was making more money than he needed. I mean, this was before he was necessarily a household name. He just had a handful of climbing sponsors. And as he kind of gained some level of notoriety, he really wanted to just give back in some way. So he committed at that point in time a third of his income towards the solar energy projects. And over time, especially on the heels of free solo, that impact has kind of grown exponentially. In 2018 is when we kind of incorporated as a 501c3 nonprofit. Alex initially started it as a donor advised fund, which is a bunch of financial lingo that I won't bore our audience with. But, essentially there was just this sense that it could grow from just Alex being someone who was researching on his own and giving to a handful of projects per year to something where Alex, alongside a community of donors and philanthropic and corporate backers, coming together to support these community-centered solar energy solutions. That's also around when Kate and I joined the team.
Nice. You mentioned free solo in there. For um, anyone that doesn't know, can you talk a little bit about free solo and how it has had such a positive big impact on progressing the Honnold Foundation? Do you think the Honnold Foundation would be where it is now if that movie has never came out? Or talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that granted, candidly, Free Solo was just before my time here at HF, but like I mentioned, I think on the heels of that film, Alex's profile kind of grew dramatically, and there was the desire to do something with that profile. The desire to use that elevated audience to try to do as much good as possible. So I think that Free Solo, made Alex into a household name, which by extension really changed the game for what HF could be and what we could do as a result. And in the years since, our small but mighty team, we've been focused on trying to think critically about how to maximize that opportunity.
Nice. And what what countries is there like a main like area or region that the Honnold Foundation focuses on? What exactly have they done in these certain regions around the world or the US?
Yeah, so we work worldwide. So our impact is worldwide, and we work across a number of countries, really all across the world. But we've recently reined in our focus a little bit more because there is such an increased demand, and because there has, we've seen such demand through the open call for applications that we run every year for grants. And so we've reined in our focus to be primarily in the Americas as well as island nations around the world. And so that really makes us feel global in a large sense. But so and with the way that we work around the world, we work with grassroots community-based organizations. So think smaller organizations that are working in one single community primarily. And we provide support to install community-based solar solutions. So those are solutions to energy access that are coming from the community and being designed and maintained by the community. The solutions really, really range. So depending on where you are, again, it could be a water pump, it could be a solar home system, lots of different ways. Think of all of the things that you use access to energy for, and that can be a solar solution. So that really ranges, but the thing that stays true is that they tend to be very small communities and single communities, and the solutions are all community built.
And have you guys noticed, like, is there a specific region that's more in need of solar energy than others, or is it kind of evenly distributed among developing countries?
It really ranges. I would say that the need for access to energy is true across the world. And so oftentimes, we forget that in places in Canada, the United States, there are a whole swath of our country that lack access to energy, lack access to clean water. And we tend to forget that because we live in the US and I can go and turn my light on and my faucet on anytime I want. And so, it exists here, it exists throughout the countries, all in the Americas. and all across the world. We see a really large amount of applications coming from a variety of different African countries, as well as Southeast Asia, and a really high amount too in the Americas. A lot in South and Central America. So really, it ranges, but it's very, very apparent anywhere in the world.
Yeah, and just to add to that, I mean, I mentioned that kind of our scale and impact has grown dramatically in the last few years. Since 2019, we've actually supported over 50 partners, kind of in over 25 different countries and over 50 different communities around the world. And that's been a massive increase in our growth. And yet, it's also worth mentioning that we've received over 2,000 applications from over 140 different countries. So there's a massive volume of need and a massive all of these solar energy solutions. So while we're kind of out of the growth and out of the impact that we've been able to catalyze and the way that we create that impact in terms of like these community centered partnerships, there's a tremendous volume of need for these creative community centered solar energy solutions all around the world. And that's really like that's our focus right now. How can we meet that volume of need and demand?
With so much demand and demand for solar energy and working all around the world, like what are some of the main challenges you guys face, like working with other companies, working with other countries, language barriers? Do they even care about solar energy? Do they want it? Are they accepting of it? Can you talk a little bit
Yeah,
about that?
yeah, I can speak to a little bit of it from the partnerships, and then I'll let Kate chime in from kind of the grantee partnerships end. Um, I mean, I think that first and foremost, the biggest barrier to us kind of doing more of our work is funding, right? I mentioned the volume of need, and again, while we've kind of grown dramatically because we've been able to, we've seen honestly a lot of volume of support of people who are inspired by Alex's giving. And we're really thankful for that support. A big community of recurring donors who are giving, as little as $5 a month, as much as $100 per month. All of that makes a really dramatic difference in terms of like the amount of work that we can do per year, alongside some of our corporate partnerships and philanthropic donors or private donors who are able to make more significant gifts. With that said, and while we're thankful for all that support, again, I think the volume of need just goes to show that with increased funding, we could do a lot more, right? And then I think that one of the unique things about our grant making model, and I'll let Kate speak to this more, but that's really cool, is that because these are community-based, community-centered solutions, there is that automatic buy-in, right? I think there's a lot of folks in our space who might airdrop a solution into a community, might just say, hey, I think they need solar. Let's go install some solar there. Those are the kinds of projects that far too often those solar energy installs, for one reason or another, wind up in the landfill. When there's pre-built in community buy-in, and when the solutions to communities' problems are coming from the communities themselves, there is that immediate buy-in and immediate adoption.
Yeah, and I would say, to talk a little bit about, it's funny that you mentioned languages, because it reminds me of one of the very first partnership calls that I had. In our very first grant round that we had in 2020, I was talking to one of our grant partners for the first time. They spoke Portuguese, almost no English, spoke a little bit of Spanish. I speak Spanish and English, so I can loosely understand Portuguese if someone speaks really slowly. And so we had a translator on the call who spoke Spanish and Portuguese, but was calling in from Germany. And so it was just one of those things. The call took like 2 hours because everything had to be said 3 times in different languages. So it's like definitely something that happens, but it's something that there's a solution to it, right? And we're really excited because I think for the first time this year, we launched our entire application cycle in Spanish too, which for us is huge. We get a lot of Spanish speaking applications, we get a lot of Portuguese applications. And while the language isn't quite the same, it may be easier to understand for some people. So I would say that, definitely language plays into it, but we intentionally try to keep our grant applications really short. so that it doesn't require a high level of English fluency. The other thing that's always a battle, and this is like just one of those scheduling things that you have to deal with, is time change, right? Like if we're talking with partners in Papua New Guinea or we're talking with partners in Indonesia, they're up till 11 p.m. and I'm awake at 3 a.m. trying to get on a call. And so really no one's having a good time. But it's just the way that it's bound to work.
Yeah, I'm sure that's pretty challenging dealing with the time differences. I'm here in Florida, Matt's back in Colorado, and it's only a 2-hour difference, and it still messes us up.
Exactly. Yeah.
Um, but so could you guys kind of walk us through the entire process from when you kind of identify a community that's in need of solar energy all the way to the very end, once you've completed the install and everything, and kind of how that benefits the community at the end of the day?
Yeah, for sure. So for context, the way that grant applications, the way that like funding tends to happen is kind of in two different ways. This is generally speaking. So there's one way to do it, which is like by an invitation basis. And so you'll have organizations and foundations that go out and look for projects, get recommendations, and then go and speak with that organization and invite them to apply to an application. And then there's what we do, which is called an open application. And so that means anyone, anywhere in the world is welcome to apply to our application. We do that for a very specific reason. And that is because we're really interested in working with grassroots organizations and groups that might not be on other people's radar. Some of these organizations and communities that we work with don't have a website. They don't have, a way, they don't have kind of that notoriety that some other organizations have. So for us, that's really important. The other thing that does is it puts onus on the community from the first step to tell us what you need. It's not our job to go in and look at something and tell you what we think you need. That is the opposite of what we want to do. And so for us, having a partner driven application process where they're telling us the entire time, how much do you want? How much do you need? What do you need? Who's going to be involved? How are you going to involve them? Having that driven by the community the entire time is really important for us. And so once we identify our grant partners and the organizations that we're going to work with, we get started. And so we have a really flexible and very trust-based model. So while some funders might require extensive financial reporting or really kind of burdensome or over-the-top reporting, like progress reporting, we don't do that. For us, the most important thing is that the partner that we're working with knows best. And so it's our job to provide them with the funding that we said we're going to provide them for, and also anything else they might need. So maybe they need help with communications planning. And Peter has worked with organizations of various times helping with different communications aspects, whether it's, how to plan out projects or how to get started on a website or all of these different things. So in addition to providing funding, we're also providing kind of all of these different ancillary support systems, I guess, for lack of better words. One of the other important things that we do is the partners that we're working with, they identify their solar installer. So we are not solar experts and we're not solar installers. We rely on our partners to identify the person in their community or in their region that's going to install the solar. That again allows for a lot of community ownership of that relationship and how that's going to go. It also cuts down on any sort of imports and exports of different materials that have to come in out of the country. And then if something breaks down in the future and they can't fix it themselves, they have someone local where they can talk. But we do offer our partners technical support if they need it. We have a group of experts that help us review the technical aspects of our applications. And they are kind of on standby if a partner has a question or if an installer has a question around how something works. If if something is happening that like no one can really understand, like we'll work with you to try and figure it out.
That's really cool. So it's basically you guys kind of organize all the pieces and kind of let the community themselves kind of lead the project on their own.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's awesome. So have you guys faced many, like, what are some of the challenges that you've faced throughout that entire process, what's one of the more difficult aspects of it, and kind of how do you overachieve some of, or how do you achieve, sorry, overcome some of those hardships?
Yeah, I think, every community that you go into is different, right? I think every community is different, and there's also a lot of similarities between them. And so I think, providing space and and this is something we're gonna be working on a lot too, is providing more space for our grant partners to talk to each other and learn from each other. That's something that our grant partners have told us that they want, and something that we are really interested in providing the space for. And so kind of allowing for that shared learning and kind of the shared ability to overcome variety of barriers is really important. When we talk about when we talk about barriers and challenges, it makes me think about our Puerto Rico microgrid, which we're about to celebrate the finalization of. The super large, one of a kind, first in the world microgrid. And so we're learning as we're doing it the entire time. And this has been, this is a microgrid that it's huge. It's what, Peter, 187 kilowatts with 1.1 megawatts of battery storage. So really that means like a lot of power for a lot of days is what that means. And we've been learning the entire time as we're doing it. And every step of the way, it's like, oh, I didn't know we had to do that, because no one's ever done it before. So like, why would we know that? And really the best way to overcome those barriers has been working alongside the communities we work with in like a really, truly trust-based manner. Like they are comfortable coming to us, telling us like, we don't know what to do, or we didn't do this because like we ran into this thing, help us figure it out.
Are you like, have either of you two like physically gone to any of these places or communities where you have, helped coordinate or get solar installed? And are they receptive to it? Are they appreciative? Or how does that?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great question. And I think it's interesting because, again, every community you go to is so interesting, but every partner that I've ever talked to has, without prompting, like asked me to come and visit, right? It's like, and like, well, I would love to do that. I can't quite do that. It would be great. I would love it, but here we are. But we've been to quite a few. We've been to a few of the partner communities. So the Puerto Rico microgrid that I mentioned, we actually have a person on our team, Cynthia, who has been dedicated to that project the entire time because it is so complicated and so large. So she's really ingrained in that community at this point. But Peter and I were also really lucky to be able to travel to see one of our partners in Ecuador and Amazon. And we went in September of last year, Peter. And it was quite an amazing experience to go and see. We worked with a community to install solar on guard stations. So they're an indigenous nation that lives in the Ecuadorian Amazon and are protecting their lands. And we helped with them. We helped them put solar on guard stations that they have along the barriers of their land, along the borders of their land, so that they can monitor for things like illegal mining and encroachment and poaching and all of these things. Because without electricity in those guard stations, they have to come back and recharge all of their drones and recharge all of their cameras, because those things are really necessary to have when you're patrolling your lands, because they provide evidence that they can then take to the court and be like, look, see, I told you.
Exactly. Just to add on to that, like kind of unique story. The interesting thing about the Ecuadorian government is essentially one side of the government recognizes indigenous land rights. I believe it's the judicial branch versus like the executive branch rarely actually upholds those rights. So what happens is it puts the onus on these indigenous nations and these indigenous communities to self-organize and bring that evidence of illegal extractive industry. So these solar powered outposts allow the patrols called LaGuardia to, like Kate mentioned, kind of stay off grid longer, patrol their territory, which is over 32,000 hectares of land, for upwards of 2 weeks at a time, while recharging drone technology, while recharging the camera traps that they set up. And overall, just being a little bit safer out there. Like they just speak to like, the creature comforts of having a solar panel and having a light to turn on while they're kind of out in the middle of the Amazon. It just makes it all a little bit more, just a little bit more tenable for them.
And then how, like, what's if people are just hearing or learning about the Honnold Foundation, like how can we help? How can we get involved? What can we do for you guys?
I mean, I think the first thing that I would say is, if you feel inspired, whether it's $5 a month, $50 a month, give what you can, however you can, and so long as like it's a gift that challenges you, um, like again, every little bit counts. It's all about everyone coming together to tackle some of these necessary changes in these communities. And you can rest assured that when you make a gift to the Honnold Foundation, that it is going to support these community-centered solar energy solutions around the world. That's kind of first and foremost.
Nice. And if you purchase one of the Honnold Foundation water bottles, you can also
100%.
help support
There we
the
go.
Honnold Foundation.
Exactly, exactly. And I mean, more broadly, if you're in a position in a company or if you're in a position to kind of think about more creative partnerships, reach out. I mean, I'm always excited to reach out or connect with passionate folks. Just like the folks over at Epic Water, they introduced themselves and they had an idea and they said that, hey, in perpetuity, we're going to donate a portion of these proceeds from these water bottles to these projects. Um, and that all of those kind of easy win-win situations are things that we get excited about because they feel values aligned. And like I said, they make an impact and it's a damn cool water bottle. So
Absolutely. Do you guys, on the topic of partnerships, do you work with other companies? Do you have other like collaborations that you've done in the past or anything similar to what we're doing together?
I can't say that anyone's ever done a water bottle like this. I mean, this is really cool. We work directly in addition to kind of with Epic Water. We work with a handful of kind of solar energy installers, both who are able to kind of commit some funding towards us and some in-kind donations of panels or installations, that sort of thing. So shout out to Sunrun Solar and REC Solar. They've been really great partners for us. Black Diamond is also a really great partner. A portion of the proceeds from sales of any of kind of Alex's signature series also comes to the Honnold Foundation. So if you're a climber out there and you need chalk or you need a chalk bag, choose something that has Alex's signature on it because we get a kickback and it's much appreciated.
Nice. Do you guys do much promoting or marketing, or is just Alex just this powerhouse driving people to the Honnold Foundation?
No, I think to that point, again, kind of depending on the partnership opportunity, there's ways to get creative in a corporate partnership with HF or whatever that looks like. We work kind of hand in hand with those sponsors to do storytelling. For example, there actually is going to be a short film that comes out about LaGuardia and our trip to the Ecuadorian Amazon. So stay tuned for that. It's probably going to be out in around May. And then, there's opportunities to engage your teams with HF and even engage your teams with Alex if you're interested. So again, like there's opportunities to think creatively, both from kind of like from a branding perspective and from like, as long as we're approaching this work from a place of shared values and wanting to drive impact and wanting to support these community-centered solutions, we're really eager to work with folks.
Nice. And then I guess to get on a more personal level with our partnership, why did do you guys personally use filtered water? Is clean water important to you? Why does this partnership make sense? Can we dive a little bit into that?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I can tackle that, but I think Kate's actually the perfect person to talk about clean water because she spent some of her career working specifically on access to clean water. I mean, from HF's perspective, right? We talked about the things that solar energy can provide and how this like increases equity in communities. One of the solutions we see really frequently is like solar powered water pumps, right? And those are for water access and for irrigation access, and stabilize like access to water for agriculture. We've seen in some cases with the communities we work with, like Navi Karana, this community in the Himalayas, that actually stabilizes an entire community's ability to continue living in their ancestral territory. Without these kinds of interventions, a lot of these folks might be forced to to migrate as a result of climate change, because around the world, these water resources are drying up. In terms of kind of access to clean water, personally, I love, how easy using this filter is. Like I've I went down a rabbit hole one day, a couple of years back, about like just how dirty our tap water is even. And I kind of honestly sleep a little easier knowing that like there's this awesome like filtered water bottle that I drink from every day. And my partner and I use like the two that we got, and we're big fans.
Same. I'm on that same boat. As this is the water bottle that I use every single day. So I love it. And it's amazing. I think again, like you think about the things that back to like clean water access and things that you need water for, right? Think about all the times during the day you use water, for anything. And then think about not having access to that and how much that would change your life. I'm a public health nerd. My background is in public health. I worked for a really long time in access to clean water and access to clean food. And those two things go hand in hand. And it's really interesting because I think with solar and with water access, it's something that I think a lot of times people think about struggling to access clean water in really remote places. And that's true. And it's also true in places like Flint, Michigan. It's true on the Navajo Nation. It's true in all of these different places. And it's true urban and rural. And it's something that I think a lot of people, along with electricity, can take for granted sometimes because we don't always think about it. And so, I think for us, the alignment with access to basic needs and things like water fit really well with the work that we're doing.
Have either of you ever gotten sick from drinking unclean water, or know anybody who has?
Yep, 100%. I was just talking with someone on a call earlier today. I spent some time in Kathmandu, Nepal, where I was working on a access to clean water program and got giardia while I was doing it. So it was, a great experience, and I had a little giardia buddy for a while. But here we are.
Yeah, it's never fun, and that's why everyone should go get themselves an Epic water filter.
Yeah.
Our outdoor filters remove giardia, parasites, cysts, anything that's going to get you guys sick. So, just one more reason to filter your water, and it's cool that providing solar energy to some of these communities actually improves their water quality and their quality of life.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so, what well, so I guess we just covered the fact that their water quality is improved whenever they're provided with solar energy. But what do these communities kind of look like before you work with them, and once the solar project is kind of complete? What are some of the most notable differences?
Yeah, so I think again, like similar to a lot of the other answers I provided, is like it ranges, right? So one of the questions that we have on our grant application is, what is your current energy source? Where does it come from? And for some people, it'll say they're grid tied, they're connected to a local grid, while others they're using kerosene or they're using wood or something else. So I think the access to energy and where that comes from can look really different, because that's one of the biggest changes, right? If you're going from using wood to having access to renewable solar energy for your energy source, that's a huge difference. Because it's going from not having a reliable source to all of a sudden being able to turn your lights on. And so that's a really big difference, I think, for a lot of communities. And I think too, depending on where you're at, impacts can look really, really different. So we're working with the community in the Brazilian Amazon, the one that I was talking about when I did like that 1,000,000-hour call in 1,000,000 different languages. And I heard from them not too long ago, and because they now have access to energy in their community, their economic resources have increased and they have access to technology and internet, And all of a sudden they're seeing people wanting to stay and come back into their community. So they're pretty rural. And they wrote me and they were like, hey, is there any way we can get additional support? Because we have more people that are wanting to come back and live in our community, and we would love to be able to provide them with solar energy. So that type of impact, it's something that you don't necessarily think about when you're like, oh, access to energy, but the impacts are so profound.
And just to add to that, I think, pulling it back to here in the US too, I think there's tremendous value in working in the US to use solar to try to help alleviate issues around energy justice. We worked in Memphis, Tennessee with Memphis Rocks. I think the climbers amongst all of us know of them, and they're a rad community-centered organization, essentially a community resource hub nonprofit disguised as a climbing gym is what we like to say. And in Memphis, in South Memphis in particular, 25% of residents pay as much as 25% of their monthly income on their utility bills. Um, and meanwhile, there's an affordable solution in solar energy if policies were to allow for that adoption. So that gets us down kind of a politics rabbit hole. But the point being is, I think in the U.S. we have, historically marginalized, predominantly BIPOC communities across the U.S. who are paying a disproportionate of their monthly incomes on their utility bills. Where if we see some policy tweaks, we have the opportunity to kind of alleviate those energy burdens on those communities.
And so do you guys kind of propose policy changes at all, or are you more so just involved with kind of the front end of it and getting these communities set up with solar energy as often as possible?
I'd say much more so the front end. I mean, we're interested in helping lend our voice and our voice and our platform where possible. But predominantly, I mean, our work lies in kind of making the solar happen in the first place.
Got it.
Nice.
Yeah, everyone knows policy changes don't happen quickly or very easily, so it's
Well, and hey,
understandable.
like Protect Our Winters is doing a great job in that space of kind of advocating for policy. And I think it's important, when you're a nonprofit like us to kind of strategically think about like what's the thing that you're going to focus on? Where can you drive impact? What do you have the capacity to do? And this is where we've kind of chosen to drive that impact.
Yep. That's funny you mentioned Protect Our Winters, because that's another one of our partners that we've done a water bottle for. So shout out to POW.
Shout out to Powell. I have that one in the closet too.
Nice.
Yeah.
We're getting towards the end of our time here, and with all these podcasts, we normally ask you guys a more personal, like one last kind of hoorah question, which would be, what would you tell a younger version of yourself today?
On any topic?
Yep, on any topic.
Oh, yikes. You can't even rein it in for me. Oh, man.
You can relate it back to the work that you guys do and kind of what's most important to you.
Like, I can't tell myself to like eat more pizza or something.
Hey, you could.
I mean, it's really good. I was eating plenty earlier in life too. I would say, I think for me, one of the things that is really important and kind of like keeps me going is this idea of like, don't take yourself so seriously, I think is really important. I think it's important to like really understand and weigh your situation and like weigh your impacts, because like you can have so much impact. And also the world's problems don't rest on your shoulders. I think coming from a background where I spent a lot of time in public health and a lot of these circles, it's like you hear about all these problems, you hear about all these things, right? And you're just like, oh, it's my responsibility to fix it all. And it's like you can help in those things and you can lend a really, really powerful voice. And also it doesn't all weigh on you. So like chill out a little bit, eat some pizza because that's a really good idea. And like work on a team, work together to make it happen.
Nice, good answer. Peter, you're on the
Man,
spot.
Don't mess it up, Peter.
Poetic. I mean,
Don't say pizza. I know you like pizza, but don't
I
do
like
it.
I like pizza a lot. I like bread. I like pizza. I mean, I think I was gonna piggyback off Kate, but I won't. But I will say the key to endurance is rest. Um, but I think I would tell my younger self, keep scratching the itch. You know, follow the things that make you stoked, um, and you know, keep just pursuing that passion. You know, keep the fire going. I feel like that's kind of counter to Kate, but I don't know. I've just been fortunate enough to be in a position where um, I've taken a couple of like leaps here and there, and sometimes you land and it's not the softest landing, but you dust yourself up, you keep going, and then when you turn the next corner and you see the next interesting avenue as you peer around that corner, um, to, you know, quote another cliche, take the road less traveled.
Nice.
Also, drink clean water.
Yeah,
Drink clean water.
Drink as much clean water as you can.
Yeah.
Water is life.
Yep.
Great final note to go off on. Just want to reiterate again that tomorrow we are officially launching the collaboration Honnold Bottle. If you're listening to this in the future, tomorrow is March 9th. From March 9th to the 13th, we will be donating 100% of Honnold Bottle proceeds back to the Honnold Foundation. So we really want to, you know, promote it, run it up as much as possible. It's got beautiful artwork by Alexandra Rubio, so shout out to her. If everyone could show their bottle again, I think that would be a great way to end it. Nice.
Damn.
We
Yeah,
love
and don't forget to celebrate Solar Appreciation Day. It's on March 11th. So everyone should go check out the Honnold Foundation's website, learn a little bit more about them, and hopefully donate to their amazing cause.